Yo, what's up to everybody out there? Welcome to another edition of the Roundtable Talk. I am your host, C Money, and in today's episode, we are doing another hot spots and history in South Florida, meaning hot spots in South Florida and history in South Florida. We are here in Key Biscayne. I am right now on Crandon Boulevard. This is the Crandon Park Tennis Center right here, but we are going to cross the street. This is part of where we're going to, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in a little bit. Crandon Park Tennis Center next right. We are about to cross the street and head into Crandon Park. Now, before I get into everything about today's episode, let me remind you that I do my research when I come to places that is included in my hotspots and in history and in other places, and sometimes there isn't accurate information, but as a viewer, if you do have any information that could help me, whether you've been to these locations, whether you know information on it, or whether you have memories of going to these places or know about these places, you can contribute to this page. I would love to hear your feedback on these locations and other things like that, because a lot of this stuff that I do try to find online does not have any accurate information, and a lot of the information I try to get is either no information or it's very little information on these locations. I was going to go this way. Now, this is Crandon Park. Like I said, you can comment at the bottom of this page, or you can also email me, but I'd rather for you to comment at the bottom of this page in the comment section to actually give us some insights. Now, Crandon Park, from what I was see, opened up in 1947. Now, Crandon Park Tennis Center, I believe, probably opened up around the same time. But the Crandon Park Tennis Center was home to the U.S. Open and popular tennis events for quite some time. Until the mid-2000s, when the owner, it was said that the owner didn't want the tennis matches there anymore, but I don't think it was the owner, because that is owned by the county, because this is a county park. So the tennis matches that ran roughly around to be like March and April of every year, they have been moved, and they have a tennis center at the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens. So that is a public tennis facility. You could probably go there on certain days and probably, play tennis and things like that. But back to this location. This was opened up, and it does look like it looks like it's going to rain. So we might have to do a 2 to 3 part episode here, because when it rains, I'll probably have to get out of the area. Now, back in 1947, from what I did my little research, this park opened up. Now, in 1948, I'm going to give you another little bit of background. There was a traveling circus. Now traveling circus that got, they was traveling through this area. And they ended up getting stranded, where they broke down or something like that or whatever. And it was information that was said that they went bankrupt. Not only did they, get stranded here, like they broke down here in the area, probably on Crandon Boulevard, which where we came from. And also, there was information that they ended up going bankrupt. The traveling circus had to leave their animals here, and I believe that the county, if I'm not mistaken, like I said, I haven't had much research on this, they ended up leaving their animals here. And upon here in Crandon Park, this is where it became the Crandon Park Zoo. Now, if a lot of you probably was too young, like myself, when Crandon Park Zoo was created back, and it said it has been created in 1948, which was roughly a year after this park was created. Now, Crandon Park Zoo started out as a little small zoo. You know, it was a traveling circus, and they had a couple of animals and stuff like that. I didn't get much on the information of the traveling circus and all of that, but there are other videos on YouTube that explains more details about the traveling zoo and everything. I mean, not traveling zoo, the traveling circus and everything of that nature. Now, where is this location? Part of this park location is at for this. Honestly, I couldn't tell you, but we're gonna do a walkthrough of this park. This was one of the parks that I wanted to do a few years back when I did the Bill Baggs Cape Florida State Park and also the Virginia Key Beach park that was here in Key Biscayne, but due to the time frame, I didn't have enough time because all of these three, along with Miami Sea Crown, which is probably another video I'm going to do in the near future, all of these videos, they are here in the Key Biscayne area. Remember, this is the amusement park area. The piece of information, the Rickenbacker Causeway, which connects Key Biscayne to the mainland, opened up in 1947, which is the same year that this park got opened up. Remember Virginia Key Beach? If you saw my episode, when I did an episode of Virginia Key Beach, we did a couple of episodes. There was where the Virginia Key Beach was only accessible by boat. It was the only African American park in Miami where black people can come and have fun. You remember they had a train and a carousel. Looks like this had a carousel too, if I'm not mistaken. So it was the only park, but it was only accessible by boat. In 1947, they built the Rickenbacker Causeway, and it allowed not only foot traffic, but vehicle traffic as well. And this park became popular in 1948 when the park zoo ended up opening up as Crandon Park Zoo. Now, there isn't much information that you can find online. Like I googled Crandon Park Zoo and it gives me Crandon Park, and then it tells you on with Crandon Park that, you know, it once housed a zoo and things like that, but there's very little information that you can get on there. So we're just gonna walk around. Here is certain areas. Crandon Park is also a beach. If you want to go to the beach, because you know it's on the shoreline of and stuff like that. So if you want to go check it out, you know, the beach and everything, you can as well. But they have other you know, amenities. When I googled it, there is said to be a restaurant here as well and other things as well. So we are going to check out majority of this park. You know, we're going to probably have a 2 to 3 part episode. I'm going to go this way. I'm going to try to stay on the concrete area as much because we had rain within the past couple of days. We've been having heavy rain, and a lot of the areas, including parks, have been flooded out. And a lot of, as you can see, a lot of the areas here is in the grass area has been flooded out. So I'm gonna try to stay on the concrete area as much as I can. So as we come to it, Crandon Park is actually known for its actual parks, you know, for its actual park. You know, they had, this is a huge park. If you want to know, it stretches out. A lot of these parks here, especially the parks that sits on the shorelines and that has beaches. Remember, I did a episode of Hollover, and this is Crandon Park Cabanas. Remember, I did an episode of Hollover, and Hollover stretches a long stretch, and there is a new side of Hollover and a regular side of Hollover, and out of these places stretches. Now, I can't tell you exactly where all of the locations was for the zoo, but we are going to take a walk, and we're going to take and see, you know, what this is. Oh, these are cabanas, so I'm guessing these are things you can rent out. You know, I remember I did an episode of at Virginia Key Beach, and they had the little cabins that you can rent out and stuff like that, and they have cabanas here where you can probably rent out a cabana here and things like that, which is not bad. We're gonna keep on walking because we're gonna try to go further and see how far we can get into the areas. I think this is probably the ending of this side of the park. As you can see, there are a lot of animals and stuff here as well, you know, ducks and birds and stuff, you know, which is quite known for the sea life. And they have upstairs cabanas as well too. We're gonna take a look. I didn't know they had cabanas here. This was something interesting. Somebody has a cabana here. We're gonna walk this way. You could rent out one of these cabanas. It would be nice if I can take a look inside of one of the cabanas, but I don't want to, you know, intrude on somebody's cabana. But okay, this is probably the south end of the park. I'm gonna probably cross over and go this way to the park. Goes this way. You know, we're gonna probably do like 3 episodes in this park. 3 parts of this episode, because this is a very huge park, and you know, it doesn't really, if you go online, you're not going to find too much information about the Crandon Park Zoo, because a lot of the information is, you know, it doesn't really give you much information. There are videos, other videos, you can come out here and visit, but it doesn't have much to go on and say, okay, this is where this is, you know, like if you did a map of things. Let's go over here to where it says Crandon Gardens, Peacock Shelter, Ibis Shelter, Kayak and Canoe Rentals. We're gonna come over here. Now, one thing I do remember about this park, I did visit this park. I visited this park a few years ago. And I did a walkthrough. This was before it might have been before I started doing the hot spots in South Florida. I'm not for sure. And I remember as a little kid, I did a field trip here when I was in elementary school. I did a field trip here because they have a marine lab here. And what we did at Crandon Park is we ended up going in the water, and we had nets and things like that or whatever, and we was picking out things in the water, and we was taking some of the stuff back to the lab, and we was in the labs, and we was using the lab. See, a lot of this walking area is flooded, so it's like that. We was in the lab, you know, using the labs. I think the ducks think I got something to eat. I don't have nothing to eat for you. I do have a bag of chips and some water, but you have your own water, so don't come near me. But and we ended up going inside of the lab, and I seen one of the labs when I came out here, and I was like, wow, you know. And I remember that field trip because I wore my LA gears in that field trip, and I was, you know, walking around and, you know, in the water with my LA gears, and I guess I had to switch shoes, and we went into the lab, and we saw like tanks with some of the creatures in the lab and things like that. Peacock Gardens, Peacock Shelter, Ibis Shelter, Kayak and Canoe Rentals. So it's over here where you can, I guess, rent kayaks and canoes and things like that. So now we're coming over here. Now this is the area, I believe, where the zoo was. This is Crandon Gardens wildlife. So a lot of wildlife is over here. Now we're gonna walk this area that looked like a little lizard or whatever. We're gonna walk this area now. Oh yes. This is where the Crandon Park zoo was at. I seen some videos online because I was doing also, videos online. If you want to know more in depth of this, you go online to go on YouTube, and there are people who there are people that are older than me. Remember when this zoo closed in 1980, and that was the same year I was born. And the zoo moved to what we used to know as Miami Metro Zoo, which is now called Zoo Miami. So all of the animals and everything moved, and I really don't have any information on why they moved. I know it probably had something to do with the weather and stuff like that, because I know the hurricane and bad weather played a role in one of this park moving, and now this park is gone to move to where we now know as Zoo Miami. And so if you ever go to Zoo Miami, I'm quite sure a lot of the animals that was here at this location are not still living today, because this location was from 1948 to 1980. And I know a lot of the animals that moved over there in 1980 probably is not existing today here. Normally when you go to places like this, they have historical signs around the area that would tell you, like, this is what this area is for, this is what this area is for. This here was probably an area designated for the park. You can see it looks like a little pit, a water pit, maybe for the crocodiles or something. Like I said, if you have any information and you can share it with us, and especially if you have pictures, it would be lovely. This was probably a crocodile pit, or for animal, like a little, because this is how the crocodile pit would normally look like. So if you know anything or have anything or information you can share with us, that'll be greatly appreciated. I tried to do as much information as I could on this place, but apparently I didn't get much information. Crandon Park Zoo, they'll give you different videos on YouTube, and they'll tell you to look at the YouTube. Here, I remember looking at this. This is one of the, I think, the monkey crazy. See? Miami-Dade County Parks, Recreation, and Open Spaces, Crandon Park 75th Jubilee Celebration Festival and Outdoor Exhibit of Eco Art. To learn more, please visit miamidade.gov/Crandon Jubilee Miami Parks #Crandon75. I believe this is where the monkeys, some of the monkeys would be housed. And a lot of these areas that was home to animals, they have renovated it and turned them into, park spaces. This is another one where they say they used to cage the monkeys here, and I think this was a monkey cage of a sort, and this is where they turned it into a picnic area. This is where they used to cage some of the monkeys. I think there used to be like a little cage or something here, and they cage. So with that in mind, you have to have understanding that there's one of the park rangers. This is where they cage some of the monkeys and things like that. This is blocked off. I'm quite sure that this was an area that, I don't know this area, so I wouldn't know. So and I see it's caged off, so we can't go to that area. But a lot of the area here, if you've lived here in the 60s and 70s when this park, and you visited this park, don't hesitate to comment at the bottom of this page. I don't know what this is. This looks like something different. Don't hesitate to comment, because I would love to know what lies here, or how this park looked. If you have pictures, that'll be great for you to share these pictures and stuff, because when I was born, this location moved in 1980, and I can't say what year it moved, but it moved to where the location is now, which is Miami Metro Zoo, what it was called back in the 90s and 2000s, and then eventually it was called Zoo Miami. So this location moved there, and I don't know exactly what all happened after this place left. Like, you can honestly say that a lot of this stuff was probably left abandoned, and then eventually the park had to come and revamp a lot of these locations to where they had to, you know, it's starting to rain, so I'm gonna go shelter myself in one of the spots. A lot of these areas, they got renovated to make it part of the Crandon Park, because, you know, this is one side of Crandon Park. Now, I would love to know how much the prices was. It was probably like maybe 50 cents or $1 or so to get inside the park, to get inside the zoo. I'm quite sure there wasn't a lot of, you know, locations here to get inside the zoo. You know, it wasn't as much, because now you're probably paying like $20 to $30 to get inside the zoo. Now you probably, you know, back then you only probably paid 50 cents to $1 or so to get inside the zoo. Now this looks kind of interesting. This looked like it was a pit of some sort, where you know, had some type of pit. Now I can only imagine that this zoo was not big. It was a small zoo, because remember, like I said, a lot of the animals that was here, they was from a traveling circus, and from the traveling circus they had got stranded here, and they ended up, I guess, going out of business or bankrupt or something, they said. And then eventually it got to the point where, you know, they left their animals, and I guess they built the zoo here. Not the company, but I guess the county built the zoo here. Now this right here, from my understanding, this is where they house the lions and tigers. I did I'm just gonna see if I can reference the video. It was a older couple, and they did a video here of Crandon Park Zoo, and they remember the zoo, and they remember a lot of the zoo. And this was one of the things that they looked at. It was a lot of area they covered. Right now I can't go to certain areas because of the fact that these areas have been blocked off and has been roped off to where I can't get to it. And if you look in the back of here, you can see this is where they would house the lions and tigers and stuff like that. This was their, I'm gonna see if I can get a closer view of this. This is where they would be living in, and this was where they slept at and stuff. Now you probably have, you know, ooh, a fly was coming in my face. You probably have where you have lizards and stuff that will come in here, and probably flies, and probably, you know, little critters and stuff. I see that somebody did some graffiti in this one. This is where they house the little tigers and stuff like that, and things like that. So this is one of them. So we're gonna walk back this way. We're gonna, and pretty much this is basically what the park looked like. I can honestly tell you there was probably more to this park, because this is a huge park. Crandon Park is huge, and this was probably a lot of this park. So a lot of this you're probably not going to, you know. And then not only that, over the years, due to bad weather and stuff like that, you probably had it to where what I was gonna say, something. Oh yeah, you probably had it to where, you know, like hurricanes and bad weather and bad storms, they probably had to where it kind of messed up a lot of the wetland and a lot of the areas here, to where it was so severe that they kept things like this. Because see, a lot of these areas are natural habitats, and they're protected. And not only that, it's areas that was damaged by hurricanes. You had Hurricane Andrew, Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Irma. You have a lot of these hurricanes that came through out here, and regardless if they were severe hurricanes, or we got the back end of the hurricanes, or we got a little bit of weather because of the hurricane. Remember, Hurricane Andrew was a Category 5 storm that damaged a lot of places. Hurricane Katrina, we got hit, but not as bad as New Orleans, where they was underground and they was flooded. So a lot of these places, you know, a lot of these areas got hit by heavy rain and heavy storms. So this probably got damaged a lot to where a lot of the stuff didn't get restored. A lot of the places like the lion and tiger encounter, which is right here, that got restored to just a bench area. You see that they have the little areas where they kept them inside in the back. That is gated off, but it always been gated off. You know, I'm probably sure the area here was probably fenced off. A lot of these areas like the monkey cages and stuff was probably fenced off to where you couldn't go or you couldn't see them. Like how close so you see how close I got to the cage where the lions and stuff at? You probably couldn't have got close to that cage like that. They probably had a fence around it where, you know, when they came out, they was out in the front area, which is that area, and they probably was walking around and they probably had a fence high enough where they can't come and attack you or anything, and you could see them from over the fence. And they probably did little shows where the animal trainers was feeding the animals and things like that. You have a little area over here. I don't know what that is. That's closed off. I'm not going to go over there. The park ranger is right there. So, you know, I'm not one of them people. You know, I've seen several videos online where, you know, they have where the park ranger comes and they, hey, you can't go over here and stuff like that. So I'm not one of them people. But if you do have information on a lot of these areas, feel free to explore. I'm only exploring what I can explore, and that's certain areas of this part. We are going to do a part 2 of this, and maybe a part 3, because I am going to explore more of the zoo. Now that is an area I remember seeing that in the video, and there are several videos highlighting Crandon Park Zoo. If you want to check them out, go check them out. I'm just doing the outskirts of Crandon Park Zoo, meaning the areas that is visible by the park goers, and you can visit the areas and stuff like that. But at the same time, you know, you want to check out, you know, parts of the zoo, go out ahead, because like I said, there is not much information that they have on this zoo. Like a lot of the information that you get online, you know, you can find information, but there's not much information on the zoo. So if you try to, you know, go, yeah, I'm gonna go find a shelter because it's sprinkling and I know the rain is about to come, so I'm gonna go shelter in place for a little bit. Then I'm going to, you know, relax myself. But a lot of these areas, they are closed off. This probably was another swing, because I see the two little things here. It's probably another swing like that. So it's 2 of them that sits here. This probably was another one. A lot of these areas like this, I told you, is roped off, and a lot of this area, and the park rangers, when they come around, they're going to tell you, hey, you can't go over here, this is closed off and stuff. So a lot of the areas here, I've been wanting to do this for a minute when I started doing hotspots in South Florida, and then I forgot about this location, because when I wanted to do the Crandon Park video, it wasn't I wasn't going to do a video about the zoo. I was just going to do a video about hotspots in South Florida with Crandon Park. It wasn't to a while back when I realized I forgot Crandon Park had a zoo, and it was called the Crandon Park Zoo. And I realized that, hey, this is something I should do. Let me do the Crandon Park Zoo. And then I did try to do research on this location, and turns out I couldn't get much information. I'm going to take my hat off right quick. I'm going to take this up. I didn't get much information on this zoo, because a lot of the information that they have is not going to tell you. You can find out about Crandon Park, which opened up in 1947, and it did give me that the zoo opened up in 1948. I got most of my information based off of YouTube videos and stuff like that. This looked like a little garden, whatever. I don't know what this used to be, but if I'm gonna try to zoom in on it, where it probably was a little area where they had like birds and stuff like that and all of that. There's a lot of areas that is roped off that you can't visit here as a park goer, but I'm sure back then when the zoo was open, it was accessible then. And probably maybe in the 80s and 90s, probably it was accessible to the people, where it was certain areas that was accessible. But now a lot of these areas are roped off to where they say, hey, you can't visit here, this is roped off, this is closed off to people. Now if they was to ever put a zoo back here, it probably wouldn't be as successful as the Zoo Miami, which is the new location of the zoo, that opened up in 1980. I believe it opened up. I believe it opened up in 1981. I know it moved in 1980, but I believe it wasn't ready to 1981. I'm not mistaken. Well, we are gonna do a video of Zoo Miami in the near future. Just haven't had the opportunity to go that way. But yes, as you can see, we're past our time, so we're gonna take a brief pause. I'm gonna relax. I'm gonna drink me some hydration. Stick around for part 2. We are at Crandon Park Zoo, hotspots in South Florida, history in South Florida. Remember, comment at the bottom of this page. You can also email me roundtable00@yahoo.com. If you have any memories, if you have any pictures, videos, if you've ever been to this park, if you've ever been to this zoo, or if you ever took a stroll here since then, comment, let me know. This is the Roundtable Talk. As always, stay safe, stay blessed, stay hydrated. I will see you in a couple of minutes in the next episode. Take care.